Howdy, Immortalium here, and today I want to discuss why some manga are flopped. Now, before I start discussing why some manga are flopped, I should probably explain first of all what flopping is. And so my best example here is actually something that I came across recently. Recently, a friend gave me a few copies of Manga Mania that she had found in a car boot sale. And I was flicking through one of these issues, in particular it was this issue, and I came across a manga that I already owned in it. It was Black Magic by Shiro Masamune, which I've actually done a review for. But something that occurred to me when I looked at it, and actually it should have occurred to me much earlier because if I'd been paying attention, I'd have noticed that the spine is on this side. I was looking at it and I was thinking to myself, the artwork doesn't look quite right. There's something different about this artwork. And so I went and got my own personal copy of Black Magic, and I noticed that Black Magic in this magazine had been released flopped, i.e. The artwork was backwards compared to the other edition of Black Magic that I owned. And so, because of that, I was thinking to myself, and also the fact that I recommended several flopped manga in my recent 5 to 15 volume manga recommendations video, I decided that it would be worth tackling flopping as a topic. So let's start off with why manga is released right to left in Japan, because understandably, we as Westerners, and in fact a lot of countries in the world, are very much used to reading from left to right. However, in Japan, their writing system, in which they make use of kanji, hiragana, and katakana, is typically written from top to bottom. So if we take a look at a Japanese volume or two that I own, you will notice that the writing proceeds from top to bottom, and then you work yourself from right to left. And that's why so much manga is published in this format. Now, it is worth noting that you can write Japanese horizontally, and when you write it horizontally, it actually becomes left to right. Now, I do believe, if I'm correct, that the Japanese originally experimented with writing horizontally from right to left, but eventually they just decided to write from left to right. So if you're in Japan, you will actually be able to tell which way you have to read based on which side of the book the spine is. But, as you might expect, when manga publishers were originally introducing manga to the American audience back in the 80s and 90s, they were understandably afraid that having to read from right to left would put a lot of people off. And so they ended up flopping the artwork. And what this process involved was they had to flip the artwork around. If there was any kind of major inconsistencies, they had to touch up the artwork. And they also had to redo the sound effects, because understandably the sound effects would look quite bizarre backwards, even if they were in katakana. And it proceeded this way for pretty much up until the early 2000s, when Tokyo Pop decided to release a brand new brand. I don't know if it's exactly a brand, but it was 100% authentic manga. And the idea of 100% authentic manga was to release manga in its original format, i.e. from right to left. And it was a bit of an experiment from Tokyo Pop, but it was an experiment that proved very successful. And now we're living in an age where 99% of the manga that gets released in the West is published in right to left. So it's very much a case that for the most part we are experiencing the manga as it was originally intended. However, there can be exceptions to this, and there might be several reasons why publishers might decide to release a manga from left to right. If we take a look, for instance, at a manga that I recently recommended, Samurai Executioner, the reason that that manga was published from left to right was for two reasons. One is that Dark Horse had previously released it already, and when they previously released it, they had released it in left to right. And they decided, as part of the omnibus editions, to just keep that, not to do any extra work, just to put it out in omnibus format. And also, the other reason is that a lot of Kazuo Koike's works, when they're released in the West, are more targeted towards fans of graphic novels, Western graphic novels to be specific, rather than manga fans. And so, in order to not alienate the Western graphic novel market, a lot of these manga were released in left to right. And that was a similar reason that Vertical gave for the release of several of their Osamu Tezuka manga. Manga like Message to Adolf, like Moo, like Ode to Kirihito, like Apollo Song, anything that they considered to be kind of adult-oriented, they decided to focus more on the Western graphic novel market rather than the manga market, and so they ended up releasing a flopped edition of those books. And then sometimes it's a case that it isn't actually flopped in the first place. The only example that I have where this happens to be the case is Unico, which is read from left to right, but was actually originally released in left to right in Japan. So it isn't actually flopped, but it is read from left to right. That might confuse some people, understandably. Now, in addition to that, as I mentioned before, when they flipped the artwork, they would have to do extra work on it. They'd have to do new sound effects. They would have to touch up the artwork in case any of it looked inconsistent. And this also cost them a bit of money. And so being able to release manga in its original right-to-left format not only pleased those who are in the manga market, but also actually reduced the cost of translating for these manga publishers, which is a win-win for both sides. And I know some people are very sensitive to flopped manga. It's kind of a case where they believe that the author's integrity has been violated somehow when the manga is flopped. And I can understand that to a certain extent. But I'm personally not too bothered with flopped manga. Admittedly, yes, I would prefer the manga to be released in its original format, i.e. from right to left, but I'm not usually that bothered when it comes to flopped manga. It's very rare when I'm reading a flopped manga that I'll actually notice, like, consciously that it's flopped as I'm reading the story. It does happen on occasion, but it's very rare. But understandably, some people are very bothered by that, and I completely respect that. So yeah, that was my video on why some manga are flopped. It's a very interesting topic, and I would love to hear your guys' opinion on it. Is it a case for you that if you know that a manga is flopped, that you will not read it? Is it a case that some of you do read it, and if you do read it, do you notice it in the story itself? What are your thoughts on the work that goes into flopping manga? All that extra work that some people consider to be wasteful, considering the fact that they would prefer to just have the original format. Have you noticed any manga that have come out recently that are released flopped? And of course, if you have any additional information on this topic, please leave it in the comments below. And of course, if you want to support the channel, I would encourage you to use my Amazon affiliate links, both for the UK and for America, in the description in order to purchase your anime and manga. By purchasing anime and manga through those affiliate links, not only are you supporting me, not only are you supporting the channel, but you're also supporting the anime and manga industries. So I would fully encourage you to do that. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and bye-bye.